Hello, good evening, world. Happy Independence Day, Bangladesh. Good evening, world. How are you today? I hope that you are quite all right in your end. Tonight, I am welcoming you all to our free webinar, Institute for Global Professionals free webinar. Um, my name is Maria Cristina Asbucan, and I am a teacher from the Philippines. I would like to invite you all, for those who are still preparing to open their platform, I would like to invite you to sit down and relax a little, relax so that we can enjoy our lessons and listening for tonight. Okay, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to our Institute for of Global Professionals free webinar. So once again, tonight is a special night because we will be feeding our skills from our speakers for tonight. Okay, so before we start, I would like to tell you about IGP. Okay, in IGP, we organize our webinars and trainings, offline and online courses by the help and by well-trained speakers. Okay, so every day we are coming in and we are listening from this uh, well-trained speakers. So um, with the mantra of IGP, we are feeding our skills. All right. This is the 422 webinar already, and I hope that we will learn from tonight's lessons. Okay. Before we start feeding our skills, I am again welcoming one and all to this free webinar. I would like to introduce our speaker for tonight, and that is he will be talking about the power of TOS, or the power of table of specification. But before that, I would like again to to tell everyone to please help us share and tag your friends as we go along with the show. Okay, so we welcome you all to this free webinar. Let's learn and grow together. Okay, share this live via Facebook, via Instagram, Twitter, social media, and invite your friends so that we will all learn together. This is live, by the way. Okay, so without much ado, I would like to introduce to you our speaker, Mr. Jimbo Antupolo, and let's you help me welcome him by giving him a round of applause. Everybody, Sir Jimbo, are you here already? Are you ready to talk in front of everybody else? Okay, let's welcome Sir Jimbo J. Antipolo, LPT, MED, Philippines. Let's give him once again a round of applause. Sir Jimbo, hello. Okay,
Hello.
so he is
Hello,
preparing.
everyone.
I hope uh,
Am I heard,
anytime
ma'am?
he will be sure. He is already Sir Jimbo, our speaker. Okay, so once again, let's learn and grow together. Let us feed our skills because it's not enough for us to only have the knowledge, but without skill, we are nothing. Okay, so we are thankful for this IGP, or Institute of Global Professionals, because they are offering and they are um, helping us by feeding our skills. Once again, Sir Jimbo, Antipolo, J. Antipolo, LPTMED Philippines, we welcome you to IGP. Take it away, Sir
Thank you, Ma'am
Jimbo.
Maria. Good evening, everyone. I just want to extend my gratitude to Ma'am Maria, our lovely moderator. Same goes to Sir
Thank
Kamrul
you,
of
sir.
IGP. And of course, I have to thank Institute of Global Professionals, IGP, for this great opportunity, for believing in my potential to hold a virtual seminar like this one. I am happy to be with you all professionals, my co-teachers, co-educators coming around the globe. at this very moment to share my knowledge and to be with me, to share my experience with you guys about the topic that is assigned to me. So to start, I want to remind everyone to be attentive and be cooperative as we are all working in progress. Please be kind and be understanding. I would like also to remind you that ahead of time that one of my challenges right now is my internet connection. So my apology if along the way I'll be coming in and coming out, but hopefully it will not happen. Okay, manifesting it won't. Now let's start with our topic
Okay.
this
I hope
morning.
all will be well.
Hopefully, my topic is on the power of a table of specifications or TOS. It has something to do with the classroom test construction. I just want to present to you a game so that in your classroom, inside your classroom, you can also present this game to your lovely students. This game is called switching the color or color switching. It's just the mechanics of this game is just very simple. You just have to name the color of the font of that particular word. Okay? You do not need to, please tell your students that they do not need to read the word, but instead they have to name the color that is used in that particular color or in that particular word. Now, let's have an example. Ah, okay? So, the answer should be green. It should not be yellow. Okay? It's a mental gymnastic or it's a mental exercise that we can give to our students. So that is how color switching game goes. Okay? So this is how we present this one to our students. So the answer is green. If we have this one, what's our answer, everyone? So we have the blue. Okay, that's good. We have this one, purple. Guys, it's not pink, it's purple. Perfect. It's red, it's brown. Okay, it's white. Thank you guys for participating. How about this one? We have yellow, we have white, we have purple, we have yellow, we have black, we have another black, we have red, and this is brown, we have blue, and we have red. Okay, thank you for having with me. So that is how color switching game is being done. So hopefully you can practice this one inside your classroom. Just to start, just to gather the energy of the class. Okay, now to start with, there is a very big question as to which comes first. Is it the good TOS or is it the good text? So these two interchanging words or these two interchanging terms should be understood very well as to which comes first. Is it really the good test or is it the TOS? Which should be constructed first? Is it the TOS or is it the test? According to theory or ideally, before you construct your examination test, before you make questionnaires, you have to build up a very good TOS because a good TOS would lead to a good test. But this has been a practice in the field that teachers are submitting to their to the supervisor, to their respective principals, the exam questionnaire without doing the TOS. So that is where the problem comes in. So we have to revisit our knowledge on the assessment of learning because we tend to forget as to how we conduct a good test. Since we're very excited to conduct our prelim exam, our second quarter exam, the tendency is we are lacking with time and we just have easily present the questionnaire or the exam questionnaire to our head or to our supervisor without doing a TOS. So that is something to reflect, and that is something to correct at this very moment. That's why I am discussing to you. I know you are already familiar with the table of specifications. I know you know how to construct this one, but this is just a very good reminder that we should, as teachers, make it well. We have to observe the correct process as to how we prepare our test to our students. Now, in my talk, I'll be covering what is a good test. Under what is a good test, we will be identifying the common observation of our students on the test questions that we constructed and that we gave to them. We will also be determining the possible reasons for faulty test questions. Okay? And as much as we can, we have to revisit what are the characteristics of a good test and the factors to consider in preparing a very good questions and the general steps in test construction. After we discuss on the good test, we now have to go to the discussion of table of specification. We have to define TOS. We are going to identify the significance and components of a TOS. We will also review the revised Bloom's taxonomy because this taxonomy has something to do as to how we construct TOS. And on the later part, we will be having the lesson or the workshop on how we construct a TOS. I told you earlier that TOS comes first before the test. But for my discussion, we will be talking first about a test, then later on about TOS. Because the main highlight of this seminar is on how we construct TOS. Bear with me because this would be our objectives for tonight's session or for today's session. We have to define TOS. We have to describe what are the benefits of TOS, what are the implications of TOS to us as efficient, as effective teachers, and what are the benefits of this TOS to our students. As well as we have to describe the things that should be taken into account when we construct a TOS. And lastly, if we have time, we will be constructing a TOS. Now, there is a very big question that as educators, that as teachers, that we have to remind ourselves every day the way we conduct our assessment before and after we conduct our assessment. We really have to reflect as to are we fair enough with our students. Now, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Now, this scenario is very common in the classroom. For example, if you are discussing a particular topic, and after you discuss this topic, you give an exercise, you give a quiz, you assess your students. However, you treat all of your students as one individual. So we tend to forget that there exist multiple intelligences. So these concerns should be considered because if we treat our students as one, neglecting that they are unique, that their needs are different from their classmates, that the way they learn is very different from their classmates. So that should be considered this time. We have to answer this question because this will bounce back to us as we are the teachers of our students. Are we good teachers? Yes, perhaps we can tell to ourselves, I am a good teacher. But are we fair enough with our students? Okay, I want you to reflect on that one. Now, according to the World Watch, the Philadelphia Trumpet, August 2005, 13% of students who got low grades in exams are caused by faulty test questions. The test questions become faulty simply because the teachers failed to prepare a table of specifications. Since the teacher failed to construct a TOS, therefore we have to assume that that particular teacher was just simply questions based on what he or she wants. If the teacher wants to give this particular question, then he decided to give this question without looking into the objectives of the lesson, without looking into the coverage of the unit, without looking into the TOS. Okay? Hmm. This is another line that we need to reflect upon. Now, for every problem, there is really a solution. If you are not part of the solution, well, perhaps we are part of the problem. If our students failed in our exam, then perhaps we have to reflect within ourselves. Am I really an effective teacher? Am I really doing my part as a teacher? Am I really aligning my questions with the objectives, with the lessons that I gave to them? Am I constructing questions? Am I observing the proper way of constructing questions? Did I prepare a TOS prior to the construction of questions? If if your answers to those questions are no, then perhaps we are the problem. Okay? Now, to correct that one, we need to be part of the solution. Now, let's have our first topic, that is on what is a good text. Personally, based on experience, I have observed that students had opened up their concerns to the exam questionnaires, to the test, to the quizzes that I gave to them. Some of their observations, some of their concerns, some of their arguments are, Sir, this is not part of the lessons that you have given to us. Okay? So that's one of the observations that is one of the concerns of my students. Another, sir, the question is so long as well as the choices. So supposedly I gave them a multiple choice. They tend to not read the question simply because the choices also are very long. So tendency our students will not read that one. So what they are going to do, they just have to play the role of probability. They just have to guess the answer without really understanding the question. So something is wrong on how we construct our question. The layout is also a concern. Okay? And the sentences are cut according to the students. The layout is bad. It's not out, no? The layout is bad, as well as the sentences are not really constructed, in a good manner. So there are cut sentences, or I mean, there are words that are missing because I think the teachers do not or fail to proofread the questions. So that's why that uh, that becomes a very bad questions. Another one, the questions are too vague. It's not really clear, and the answer is not in the choices. So since they do not understand the question, they do not understand the question simply because the question is vague. And since the question is vague, the answers they tend to believe that the answer is not in the choices. So are we really making good questions? Are we really making a good test? So something to reflect again. Now, these are the possible reasons why the students opened up those concerns, why we make faulty test questions. One reason is that questions are copied verbatim from the book or other resources. As of today, we are having distance learning because of this pandemic. So the tendency, some teachers, I'm not generalizing, but there are some teachers who just copy the questions from the book or in the internet. Then after copying, they paste that one. Then that's it. And those are now the questions that they are giving to the students. So is it really a good question then? If we just copied it verbatim from the book. Another is not consulting the course outline. In the case of the Filipino teachers, sometimes we do not consult, or I think we just forget to consult the course guide, or I mean the what do you call that one? The CG, okay, or the our course objectives. Since we failed to consult the course objectives, that would also lead to a faulty test question. Much consideration is given to reduce printing costs. And since teachers are shouldering their own expenses, some teachers are shouldering their own printing expenses. So due to that problem, they have to save space in encoding the questions so that they can also save pages as to how many pages are to be printed. So since they need to save their own money, so they have to reduce the printing cost. That is something to do with the faulty test questions. Okay, and this is also a problem. That's why I am conducting this talk, because one of the reasons for faulty questions is no TOS was made before. Take note of the word before making the test. Other teachers are practicing after the test. So the TOS comes after they make the exam questionnaire, after they make the test questions. Is it really the good practice? Should we really start making the test questions before we submit the TOS? No, it's not. We have to prepare TOS first, and then we have to construct the test questions. Okay? Now, to be able to prepare a good test, one has to have a mastery of the subject matter. That's why my salute to the teachers, because there are teachers whose baccalaureate degree does not go with their subject that they are teaching. Some teachers are having bachelor's degree in math. However, in practice, they are teaching Filipino. Some teachers are graduating or has a degree in English, but in the practice, in the actual field of teaching, what they are teaching is MAPE. So that is something to, not just in the Philippines, but around the globe. Because one requirement to make a good test is to be master of the subject matter. How can we be master of this subject matter if we do not really spend 4 years of our college education studying this subject matter? But I am appreciating those teachers, though they are not teaching the subject matter that that is based on their degree, they really study the subject matter just to master the subject. Another is knowledge of the pupils to be tested. You can never test the knowledge of the pupils or the learners of this particular topic if you do not discuss the topic. You cannot expect your learners to give a good scores on how to perform the operations of integers if you do not discuss, if you do not give them the knowledge on how to operate integers. Another is skill in verbal expression. It has something to do with their oral prowess on how they converse their ideas and the use of the different test format. In assessment of learning, we learned that there are different test formats. We have the essay, we have the multiple choice, we have the identification. Those we should be knowledgeable of those test formats so that if this is the topic, we have to choose appropriately what would be the best test format for this topic. It's not just because if your topic, for example, is to to graph the quadratic function, you can never expect that graphing quadratic function can be best done through enumeration or through identification because that is not the appropriate task for that topic. Okay, so you have to make use of the proper test format. Now, what are the characteristics to consider in making a good test? First is the validity. When you talk about validity, it measures what it intends to measure. I think we know this one already in our assessment of learning. That when we make tests, it should be validated to measure. If we are measuring the knowledge first this topic so that we can measure the knowledge of our students in this particular topic. Okay, another is reliability. This is what it's supposed to measure. It has something to do with consistency. If you can still remember, we have this so-called test bank. When we perform item analysis, that's another topic. That's a very good topic to discuss, perhaps. When we have item analysis, we analyze the questioner, the questions or the items, and we reserve the good items for for next year or for next quarter or for the next set of students only if these questions are good. Okay, that is how we tell that our questions observe reliability. Usability, from the word itself, usability, it is the test can be administered with ease, clarity, and uniformity. Another is scorability. When we talk about scorability, it's easy to score. And sometimes, no, when we prepare our exam questionnaires, our tests, we do not reflect the scores. We do not reflect the weight of the score of this particular item. So it's better to give them the weight of the item. For example, item number one is good for 5 points because item number one requires solving. So you have to put in there the 5 points so that it would be easy for them to score by themselves so that they have direction as to how many scores they will be getting out on this exam that you are giving. Interpretability. The test results can be properly interpreted, and it is a major basis in making sound educational decisions for the next test that you are going to conduct. Okay? It's easy to interpret. Another is economical, meaning the test can be reused without compromising the validity and reliability. After you validate your questionnaires, after you check the level of reliability of your test questions, then that would lead to economical stage, meaning to say you can save because you can make use of these test questions for the next quarter, for the next set of students, because you are not compromising at all the validity and reliability. As long as the validity and reliability are both high. Okay? Now, factors to consider in making test questions. First is the purpose of test. Why are you conducting this test? Why are you giving this type of questions? What's the purpose of that particular test? How many students to be tested? Okay? So if you after you identified the purpose of why you conduct the test, you have to make it sure that you know also the number of students that you are going to test, the time available to prepare, administer the score, and score the test. Okay, that that will start from the preparation stage down to the administering stage, and lastly on the analysis and the scoring stage of the test. How much time? Is it good for 1 hour? Next is the skill of the teacher in writing the test. That's why I would recommend, or I think it's best that the schools should make seminars or sessions allowing the teachers to revisit again on how to write good questions. Okay? Because sometimes as time passes by, teachers are very busy, and they tend to forget the process of writing the proper questions. Okay? And the facilities available in reproducing the test. So those are the factors to consider. Now, when you design a test, there are questions that you need to answer. First, what are the learning objectives? This question should come first, because you can never make questions if you do not know what are your uh, learning objectives, or what are your learning competencies. So after you identify the learning objectives, you can proceed to this question. What types of items will be included in my exam, for example? Then, how long will the test, the time, as well as the number of items. So this question, how long will the test to be conducted, will be answered in the TOS later on. Okay, because that's part of the TOS. That's why it's better to conduct TOS first, because everything is in there. The learning objectives are in there, the types of items are in there based on the level of knowledge on the revised Bloom's taxonomy, the cognitive levels. So you can see that those levels on the TOS. Same with the time needed to conduct the test. Another question is, how much will each objective be worth in terms of weighing and number of items? Now in the Philippines, I don't know with the other, education in the other countries, but in the Philippines, we are following this process that we have to plan the test. And when we develop the test, we observe this process. We plan the test. After we plan the test, we are not yet writing the questions here. We just plan out the text. Again, we plan to conduct a test. We're not yet writing the questions. We're not yet constructing the questions. Okay, we're just planning to have a test. After we plan the test, we now develop the TOS. That's why before you construct your questions, before you make your exam questionnaire, you have to develop first the TOS. Then after making the TOS, that's the time that you have to write the items. Okay? Then when you after writing the items, we got questions that comes with the test assembly and the review of test items. Sometimes teachers do not review at all because there's no time already. That's why they jump into the next stage without reviewing at all the test items. That's why sometimes, since they do not review the test items, there are still items that are faulty because they do not review it at all. Okay? Now, it does not end there. It should be pilot tested. Okay? Now, pilot testing or validation should occur after you review the test. Now, after which, that comes with item analysis. Item analysis now would lead to the validity and reliability of your questions. You didn't have to answer the question, are the items useful after you analyze the items? Are the items useful? If no, then you have to reject that particular item. If yes, then you have to organize the final form of your test. And norming follows. Then lastly, you now have to prepare the test manual or the examiner's handbook or the exam questionnaire. Okay? And after you prepare, you disseminate that one, you administer that one to your students. According to theory, this process should be observed. However, other teachers do not make the TOS because I think they forget to do so. Now, what are the steps in making tests? You have to outline the objectives. Then after you outline, this is actually based on the test development process on the previous slide. You have to produce the TOS, then you have to write the questions, then you have to conduct a pretest. When we conduct a pretest, that is actually the pilot testing. Then you have to administer the test. Then you have to do the scoring after you administer the test. Of course, you have to collect the test or you have to collect the questionnaires from your students. And after collecting, you have to score and do the report. Make it sure that the feedback is immediate. It should be at least after the test, the feedback is given right away. If you cannot do it, you can do it by next day. But do not uh, it should not take 1 week to report or to give feedback of that particular test because that covers longer days. Because when you talk about feedback and assessment of learning, it should be immediate, it should be timely, so that our learners will be able to know or will be able to spot the items that they answered incorrectly. After you give the scores, you now have to do the item analysis. Okay? The item analysis would lead to decision making. Are you going to disregard this question next time, or are you going to put this question, since these questions are good, you are going to put these good questions in your test bank after you make your item analysis? If you are an architecture graduate, you have this one as your blueprint, right? Before you build your house, before you build a building, you have to make first your blueprint. Okay? You have to consult the blueprint so that you'll be guided as to how are you going to start the process of building this building. Now, same with us teachers, we also have a blueprint. And this blueprint is actually the TOS. Okay? In architecture, we have this blueprint. But in teaching, we also have our blueprint. And that blueprint is actually the table of specification. Now, what is a table of specification? According to SAGE, the TOS is a tool used to ensure that a test or assessment measures the content and thinking skills that the test intends to measure. Okay? Meaning to say, if you do not make the TOS, then there's no validity at all with your test questions because the test intends to measure, and we're talking about validity of our questions. Now reflect. How are you been practicing? Have you been practicing making test question TOS first? Because if you do not, then there's no validity at all with your test questions. Now, there are other definitions by other authors. TOS is just a chart, but it's not just plainly a chart because this uh, chart provides graphic representations of the content, of the objectives of the course, or the curriculum elements and the educational objectives. A TOS also is referred to sometimes as test blueprint. It is a table that helps teachers align our objectives, our instruction, and the form of assessment that we are giving to our students. That is how powerful table of specifications is. Now, I'll be presenting to you a template. I just have to remind you first that it depends on what school because the template of the TOS varies from one school to another, from one country to another, because there are different features of of the TOS that are not found in this particular school, but are found in this other school. So that's what I'm trying to say is that the template varies from one school to another. The sample template. So you can make this one, or you can just revisit your TOS and just check the elements in there. If the elements that I'll be talking here, the parts that I'll be talking later on, are existent in your present TOS that you are using in your school. Okay. Now, as you can see in there the learning area or the subject or the course if you are in college or university. So you have there the total number of hours taught within the quarter or within a semester or within you know, the number of items. You can see in there the academic year. And in here on the left side, you can see the content. And beside the content is the learning objectives. Sometimes other TOS does not contain content here. Well, what they have in there are just the learning outcomes, the learning objectives. But then you can also include the content. When I talk about the content, for example, I am a math teacher. For example, if I'm talking about quadratic function or quadratic equation, that's my content. Okay. Now my learning objectives would be, for example, is identify the identify the terms ABC in a quadratic equation. Solve another learning objective out from this content, which is quadratic equation, is solve quadratic equation or solve quadratic function. Another objective out from this content would be graph quadratic function. Okay, so you can construct several objectives out from this one content or one learning area or one, yeah, that's it. So if this is your content, you can make 3 learning objectives based on the complexity of the content. It depends to you actually, no? It depends on how you conduct this content or how you present this content to your students. Then the number of hours taught. Okay. For example, the objective solve quadratic function. In my case, I taught that particular objective for 3 hours. So for 1 hour. So I'll be writing here the number of hours taught. Okay? Then the percentage of class time. The percentage of class time has something to do with the total number of hours here, the total number of hours taught, and by the number of hours taught per objective. Okay? You can see in there below the formulas. The percent of class time is solved or is calculated by dividing the number of hours times multiplied by 100. So that's the percent of the class time. Beside it is the number of items. The percent of class time is would actually lead to the number of items. Meaning to say, you cannot just decide as to how many number of items. Because sometimes, if this is our objective, sometimes teachers, they themselves decide as to the number of items. For example, with this one objective, they will be thinking, okay, I want to give 10 items for for this learning objective. No, it's not that way. The number of items should be calculated. It should be calculated based on the hours that you are teaching this particular objective. Okay? It's not the teachers that decide as to how many items that you are giving to this particular objective. It should be calculated using the formula here, okay, from the class time. Now, you can see also below the number of items is just equal to the percent of class time times the total number of hours. So this is the total number of items, not hours, okay? Next is the item placement. Number of items times corresponding percent of each level. Later on, we will be together, we'll be making TOS, but you can make this. I have already in here an electronic TOS. I make this one personally using Microsoft Excel. So what you are going to do is just to input the content, to input the learning objectives, the number of hours, then the Excel will calculate it by itself the number of items. It's not hard on your part because the Excel will calculate it for you. Okay? Now on the right side, before the types of tests on the right side, you can see in there the taxonomy level, the revised Bloom's taxonomy. That's why we also have to revisit that one in a while. So there is also corresponding weight, no? The remembering and understanding, that's good for 40%. The applying, analyzing, that's 30%. The evaluating, creating, that's 30%. Okay, so this is just one of the templates of a TOS. Again, it depends on what school you are, where you are coming from. Okay, but you can also suggest this one to your supervisor because this is very friendly, no? Because the formulas are in there already and the parts are in there. What you're going to do is just to input the objectives, the number of hours. Then you're done. That's how easy constructing the TOS is. However, since it's very easy, sometimes we do not follow the process. Sometimes we jump into making questions without making first TOS. Now, what are the benefits of making TOS? Before we make TOS, let's have muna the benefits of making TOS. A TOS actually clarifies the learning outcomes. It identifies very specifically what are the learning objectives of that particular content area. Another is it ensures the content coverage. So by looking at the TOS, if I am your principal, if I am your school head, or if I am your direct head, if I look at your TOS, then I will be aware as to how many lessons you are covering for this particular quarter. for this particular semester. So by looking at the TOS, I can I can make it sure that as teacher you're doing your job well. And it also matches methods of instruction. The way your teaching pedagogies will also be highlighted in a TOS. So that would give me the idea as to how you teach these lessons, as to what are the methods you're using you know, in discussing these lessons. It also helps in assessment plan and blueprint. And lastly, it evaluates the program, evaluation of the program, okay, evaluation of the content area. That's it. Those are the benefits of your TOS. It also improves, again, the validity of your test, and it further improves student learning as well. Our students learn during the discussion. However, this learning that they gain from the discussion can be improved further if we have our TOS with us. Okay? So that's the benefits. Don't we like it that the student learning will be improved? If we like that the learning of our student will be improved, then it's better to prepare first the TOS. Now, the components of a TOS first is it consists of two-way chart or grid relating instructional objectives to the instructional content. You can see it already on the template that I was giving a while ago, that you can see in there the content area and the learning objectives. So it's a two-way chart of grid that we are relating the content area with the corresponding learning objectives. The column of the chart lists the objectives or levels of skills to be addressed. Okay? You can see in there in the column the learning objectives, if you can still recall. Then the row lists the key concepts or content the test is to measure. Okay, that's the column. And the row, you can see in there the content. Another is that the performance objectives, the cognitive domain out from the revised Bloom's taxonomy. You can see in there the remembering, the understanding. You can see in the columns. So you can also ensure that the Bloom's taxonomy are well defined in the TOS. Now, a TOS is developed before the test is written. In fact, it should be constructed before the actual teaching begins. Imagine that accordingly, before you teach your these lessons, before you teach these content areas, you have already with you the TOS. Okay, that should be the ideal way of preparing your TOS. It's better to be constructed before you teach the lesson so that you are aware, you are directed as to the targets or as to the learning objectives and the time frame of your discussions. Now, the purpose of the TOS is to identify the achievement domains being measured and to ensure that a fair and representative sample of test questions appear on the test. When we talk about fair and representative sample, it's fair and representative simply because we are calculating correctly as to the number of items that we are going to prepare for this particular objective. Okay? And with the help of TOS, it's being clarified that, for example, this learning objective is good for 10 points, good for 5 points. Okay? It's brought by the TOS. Another is, according to Cardi, that the time available for testing depends not only on the length of the class period, but also on students' attention spans. So remember that the attention span of our students vary from what your level you're teaching. Okay, so the attention span of a grade one pupil is different from the high schooler. The high schooler's attention span is different from college students. So those must also be considered according to Carly. Okay, let's have just a quick recall as to how many seconds a true false test item can be answered. A true false test item would usually take 15 seconds. So we need to understand this one because in the conduct of our test, in the conduct of our exam, for example, it should be time bounded. I think you agree with me that it should be time bounded. That's why the kind of test format, the kind of item we are giving to our that we are including in our that we are putting in our exam questionnaire uh, must be calculated properly. Okay? Now, again, if you are giving true false item, that would usually take 15 seconds. But if it depends on the complexity, if the true false item is very complex or you ask them to provide the correct answer for false questions, then you have to give an allowance of 30 to 45 seconds. If that is the kind of true false item that you are giving, that they need to provide the correct answer for false questions. So that would take 30 to 45 seconds. By doing so, you will be able to, to calculate how much time is needed for the conduct of your exam, for the conduct of your test. Okay? That is how you calculate true false item. Now for the seven item matching type questions or matching exercise, that would usually take 1 minute or 1 minute and a half or 60 to 90 seconds if there are seven items for matching type. Okay? So you know what to do. You just have to do the math. If you are giving multiple choice and the choices are, there are four choices, then that would take 30 seconds. Okay? If it's just very basic that you are just asking for the definition for the principle for just knowledge level items, then that would take 30 seconds. However, there are higher form of multiple choice items. Now, if it would require higher cognitive level, like application level, like analysis level, then you have to give an allowance of 60 seconds for one multiple choice item, having four choices. Okay? Now, if you are giving 10 items for 10 items that are all multiple choice items, then you have to give like 10 minutes to complete the 10 multiple choice items. Okay? Because each item is good for 1 minute. If and only if those questions are in the application level of the cognitive domain. Now, if you are giving items that require problem solving, like math subject, since that would require solutions on how the students need to analyze the problem and solve the problem. It depends also as to the complexity of that problem. So if the problem is so easy, then you can give 30 seconds. If you think that the math problem would require, you know, analyzing, that would require uh, more time to solve the problem, then you can give an allowance of 1 minute for that particular problem. Okay? That's word problem. Now for the short answer test, when you talk about short answer test like identification, like fill in the blanks, then you can give 30 to 45 seconds. It depends also on the types of questions that you are giving. But usually the minimum time allowance for one short answer would basically take 30 seconds only. Okay? Uh, Now for an easy test, if you're giving questions under essay, then you have to give 1 minute for each point to be compared and contrasted. Diba? You have one question would be compare and contrast these two ideas, blah 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 blah. Then you have to give 1 minute for that essay test. Okay? Now I'm done giving you the time allotment rather for the type of questions, for the type of test format that you are giving. So I think I just have to give you the assignment to please do the math. If you are giving 10 items true false questions, then how much time is needed? If you are giving 5 essay questions, then how much time is needed? So that in the TOS, you know already how much time, how much uh, uh, how much time is needed to conduct that exam, to conduct that test in general. Okay? Now, if an individual can perform the most difficult aspects of the objective, the instructor can assume the lower levels can be done. Okay? When you talk about lower levels, the Bloom's taxonomy, I think I do not need to discuss this one in detail because there you are already familiar with these uh domains, no? So you just have to revisit this one. So in 2001, the Bloom's taxonomy has been revised by the student of Bloom. So this is now the revised Bloom's taxonomy: remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So on the lower level, okay, and you can see that one on the lower part. On the higher level are the higher order thinking skills. So you know already how to categorize. I hope you know already how to categorize the type of question that you are giving to your student. Okay, these are the verbs that you can, the objectives, the verbs that you can make use in writing your objectives. For the remembering, you can make use of define, you know, recall, repeat, reproduce. For the understanding, those are the suggested verbs, the applying, the analyzing, evaluating, creating. I would love if you take a screenshot so that you have a guide with you in making your learning objectives later on. Okay? Now, the KPU paradox, it's the knowledge process understanding. The KPU or the KSA, when we write our lesson plan, di ba, we have in there the knowledge, the skills, and the attitude. Now, in making the TOS, we have the so-called KPU, the knowledge process understanding. For the knowledge, that falls under the remembering and understanding level, the cognitive domain, the cognitive levels. So that fall under knowledge. This will answer the questions what, where, and when. That is for knowledge. For the process under the cognitive levels of the Bloom's taxonomy, the revised Bloom's taxonomy, we have in there the applying and analyzing level. It answers the question how. Okay, in Filipino, paano. Now, for understanding, that is the higher level, the evaluating and creating. It answers the high level questions why. Because there are, okay, so that's the KPU, and this is prevalent in the TOS. The levels of cognitive domain, I already presented that one. The knowledge here, the understanding, the applying. We also have the analyzing, the evaluating. I think I will not be discussing this one further, no, because I think you have attended seminars or sessions already that discusses about uh, the revised Bloom's taxonomy. So I will just be presenting this one in a quick manner. That's it. Now let's go to how we construct our TOS. I know you are all excited. Okay, this is not the best part because this time we will now be making the TOS. I hope you will be with me so that you can suggest this one to your school. Perhaps you have to revisit your TOS. You have if there are missing elements of the TOS that are essential, and those essential elements are missing in the TOS that you are using in your respective schools, then perhaps you can suggest. Now, there are these are the things that to be considered in building and constructing a TOS. First, the course learning outcomes or the objectives. Topics covered in the class. Uh, you should be at hand. At first, you should be having these requirements. The amount of time spent on those topics, the cognitive level, and the assessment plan or the test formats that you are going to prepare. The table is guided by the content of the curriculum. So these are just the basic rules that you have to remember. After writing the content of the curriculum, di ba? If you can still remember the next column, that would be the objectives, followed by the Bloom's taxonomy, then the methods of instruction, the percentage, finally the assessment plan, and added keeping in mind content, learning outcomes, weighted time that is spent on instruction. Okay, I think we have to start making the TOS. When making the TOS, you just have to simply allow me to write something on screen. This would be the last part of my talk on how we construct our TOS. Learning outcome, for example, this would be math. I hope you can see it. So for a while, okay. So our learning area is mathematics. The total number of hours, for example, this is for midterm. I'll be checking this one. This is for midterm. Uh, the total number of hours taught this is just for midterm, okay? Or for example, this is just for the first quarter, or this is just for the midterm. Now in the midterm, it uh, I consumed like around 20 hours in all because a quarter would take 3 months, right? Or midterm would take, it depends, no? For a first quarter, I think it would require three months. So that is good for 20 hours in all. Okay? We have to decide as to how many hours we consumed in teaching the lessons that are covered during the first quarter or during midterm. Now, in my case, it took me 20 hours. Now, I'll be deciding as to how many items I'll be giving to this exam. For example, I decided to give, let's say, 50 items. Okay? Now, after which, I now have to identify the content areas. So, let's have integers. In teaching integers, my learning objectives are, for example, no, for example, let's say add and subtract integers. That's my learning objective. The other would be multiply and divide integers. Now, the number of there are lots, no? There are lots of content areas here. Then there are other learning objectives here. But for the sake of just presenting to you an example, just to make my just to show you how we calculate the number of items later on in this part. Let's just assume, no? Let's just assume that this is 10 hours. I am teaching addition and subtraction of integers for 10 hours. But technically, it's not that way because when we teach addition and subtraction of integers, it can be done in just 2 hours or in just 1 hour. It depends. But for the sake, please bear with me, just for the sake of presenting to you the calculation of the TOS, let's just say that this is 10 hours. Again, this is just for example purposes. We cannot we cannot tell that multiplying and dividing integers would really take 10 hours. It's impractical because usually it will take 1 to 2 hours. So please bear with me. This is just for the sake of example. Now the number of hours here, I decided to make this one 10 because that's, for example, this is 10 hours. I've been teaching this one for 10 hours. And on the second objective, multiplying and dividing integers, it took me 10 hours as well. It should be 20 hours in total because I am teaching that one within the quarter, within the midterm for 20 hours. So if this is 20 hours here, it should, the total also here must be 20. Okay? So if there are lots of objectives here, you have to make it sure that when you add all the number of each number of hours taught per objective, it should sum up to 20 hours. Okay? Because otherwise if it will not sum up to 20 hours, then something is wrong with our calculation. So please be careful. Next is we have to compute the percent of class time. There is a formula. The formula is already given at the bottom, so it's easy for you. So what you are going to do is just to divide the number of hours per objective. Okay, suppose this is 10. So this is 10 divided by the total number of hours. The total number of hours is 20. So this is 10 divided by 20. So how much? That's 1/2. Then 1/2, you have to multiply that one. You have to multiply that one to 20 to 100. So that's how much? Um, that's 50. That's 50, right? And this is 50. Am I correct? So the number of hours taught is 10 divided by 20. This is 1/2 times 100. So this is 50. That's it. Then to compute the number of items, the formula is in there at the bottom. So the percent of class time times the number of items. Okay? How much is the percent of class time for our first objective? That's 50. This is 50%, ha? Take note, this is 50%. You just have to multiply this one to the decided total number of items that we have written here. So this is 50 items. So what you're going to do is just multiply the 50 items to the 50%. So 50 items times 50%. So this is 25 items. Meaning to say, we will be making 25 items just for this objective. Add and subtract integers. Okay? Same goes with the second objective. The second objective still 50%. So the 50% again will be multiplied to the 50 total number of items that we decided a while ago. So that is still 25. Okay? Now that's it. Now, meaning to say, there are also 25 items for the second objective. Multiply and divide integers. This time, each objective, the number of items each objective will be segregated under knowledge, process, and understanding. For the knowledge, it is constituted with remembering and understanding. So what you're going to 25, the number of items, you just have to multiply this one to 40%. So how much is 25 times 40%? So this is 10. So we have 10. Okay? Since this is 10, you may decide that there will be 5 items under remembering and 5 items under understanding. So that is how we make questions under knowledge level, okay, for remembering and understanding. Next, the 25 here will now be multiplied to 30%. So this is now, how much is this? 7.5. So we can tell this one like, let's say this is 7. You can round off or you can round or not to round off. It's up to you because we have to make it sure that the total later on should be 25 as well. Okay? So I may decide that I'll just be getting 7 items under process. Okay, 7 items under process. The 3 items will be, I'll be putting the 3 items under applying, and I'll be putting the 4 items under analyzing. Meaning to say, I'll be making questions, I'll be making 4 questions under analyzing, I'll be making 3 questions under applying. Okay? Now 10 plus 7, that's 17. We're still needing how many items? 8, right? So this time I'll be rounding off 7.5. I'll be making this one as 8. So that the moment you add this one, 10 plus 7 plus 8, the total is still 25. Okay? Because that should be equal. So I may decide this is 4 and this is 4. Meaning to say, when you get the sum, 5 plus 5, 3 is 4, 4, 4, this is 25. Since they are having the same number of items for the second objective, so perhaps they will be having the same weight. Okay? On the last column, the type of test for the first objective, perhaps I'll be making this type of test as right here, problem solving. Problem solving. For the second objective, the type of test will also be problem solving because it should be appropriate for the objective. Okay? Since my objective is add and subtract, it has something to do, on how to perform the operations in relation to integers, then it has something to do with problem solving. Okay? And that's it. Again, it depends also on the school, on what template you are using. But ideally, we will be having the same elements of the TOS. Of course, the learning objectives should be present in the TOS. Same with the number of hours, same with the number of items, same with the sometimes we differ on the Bloom's taxonomy because others are just making use of, you know, the easy. Sometimes other format has easy, average, difficult for the column. But in here, instead of making use of the easy, average, difficult, we're making use of the knowledge, process, and understanding for this example. Okay? And we're done with our TOS. Now, there is an electronic copy of this format in Excel so that the moment you input here the number of hours, the moment you write here the number of hours, the number of items will automatically show. Okay, same with the percent of class time. It will automatically be given to you when you are using the electronic copy in Excel format. Okay, but manually we just computed the as to the number of items that are good for each cognitive level. And that's it. We're done with the TOS. If we are done with the TOS, then perhaps we can start with the construction of the items of the test questions. If you have questions, please feel free to comment. Now, after making the TOS, you can now collaborate. You need to collaborate, by the way, with your students, even with your co-teachers, because we are not master of all. Sometimes we need the help of others. Okay, so it's better to consult other co-teachers, ask them for help if you do not know how to determine the objectives, to classify your items as to understanding, as to applying, as to evaluating, as to creating. So you consult them if you cannot do that one by yourself. Or even your colleagues, if you had a hard time constructing the TOS, it's better to ask your to ask your superior so that you'll be making a very good test. Okay? I think that's all for now. You just have to remember this one, that in making good tests, it would really take time. It's not it's not it cannot be done in just 1 hour. Even it would take even one day just to construct one test exam. Do you agree with me? Or even 2 days, we have to spend uh, nights making our test questions. And reality, we are making our questions for 2 days, but reality check, our students just answer the test exam for just 5 minutes. Come on, guys. As your teacher, you know what? It took me 3 days to finish that questionnaire. Yet, you, my dear students, you just completed my exam for 5 minutes. How did you do it? Okay? So that's the reality. Dear teachers, please remember that a good lesson makes a good question. A good question makes a good content. A good content makes a good test. A good test makes a good grade. A good grade makes a good student. And a good student makes a good community. I know our job is not that easy, but I think I know you are passionate enough to teaching. So let's just continue with this mission that we are in. Okay, I'm done with the on how we construct the TOS. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them. Ma'am Maria.
Wow, Sir Jimbo, you have discussed and reminded everybody once again the importance of table of specification. And it's true that each school have their own format as to how we prepare our TOS. However, the content specifically, we really need to consider it very well. It's true that it has been a debatable. Sometimes we forget. Teachers sometimes prepare. Most of the time, they prepare the test exams first. Just like when we were discussing a while back before the show, teachers tends to make the questionnaire first and rather than the TOS when it should be the TOS first. It's because it's just like lesson plan or DLL. It also serves as the guide for the teacher to come up with test questionnaires. Of course, along with it, it should be uh, aligned with the lessons we are conducting or we have conducted. It's nice, sir, that you made mention a while back about what do you call this one, the importance of TOS somehow. It's like DLL that it could be also it could serve as a guide while you are teaching. So it's nicer. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge about how to prepare TOS. It's also nice to have the computed Excel so that it would not be difficult for the educators to be computing as to what and how many questions to be put in each competency. You see, in the Department of Education, we have these competencies. It's the content of our lessons. Okay, thank you so much, Sir Jimbo Antipolo, for sharing your knowledge once again. And mabuhay ka, sir. Long live Viva.
Thank you, Ma'am Maria. Mabuhay everybody.
Opo. Thank you so much. Okay, so anytime we will be having our what do you call this one? Our quiz. So just comment your questions if you have questions for Sir Jimbo about the power of TOS. Do you think that it is easy to come up with TOS? Are there further questions about creating table of specifications, and then probably you can post it and post it under our comments so that we can ask it to our dear speaker this evening. Thank you so much once again, Sir Jimbo. Okay, for our quiz, you may have it from the www.slido.com for the code quiz IGP. Link in comment. Okay, please join the quiz now. Join at slido.com, number quiz or quiz IGP. All right. Please After the quiz, we will be having Q&A, certification process step by step. Note that there is no relation between quiz competition certificates and international webinar certificates and webinar series certificates, quiz certificates for top 10 quiz competition winners, international webinar certificates for all active participants. All right. A table of specification is developed before the test is disseminated. Is it true or is it false? Okay. For true, 100%. Excuse me. False, 0%. Okay. Leaderboard, congratulations. There's flash on the screens. Next questions. Okay. Short answer test questions. Table 60 to 90 seconds. Is it true or false? All right. 42% answered true, and 58 percent answered false. All right, so there you go, the top list. Thank you so much. Wow. Next question. It is considered, wow, I can't read it well. All right. So revise Bloom's taxonomy and table of specification. 11% answered revise Bloom's taxonomy, and 89% table of specification. All right, there you go. That is the question number 3. We will be having 10 questions. This is the number 4. In making a table of a specification, the first step to do is to identify the number of students in the class. In making a TOS, okay. So is this true or is this false? All right. So there you go. 18% answered true and 82% of you answered false. There you go. For the leaderboard, 4 over 10. Question 4 out of 10 questions. Next question. A 7-item matching. I'm so sorry, I can't read that well. Takes 60 to 90 seconds. Is the answer true or false? All right. There you go. 63% answered true and 37% answered false. The answer is true. Okay, the top list. Ma'am Carmela pa din. Oh. Okay, for the next question. A 4-response multiple choice at the application level may be taken 60 seconds. Is this true or false? Right. It's true. 70% answered and 30% answered false. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, the leaderboard top scorer. It is flashed on our screen. 6 out of 10. Number 7 this time. All right. It is written on the screen. This cognitive level requires the pupils to. Really, it's too small. I can't read. The choices are analyzing and B, applying. Analyzing answered 45% answered analyzing and 55% answered applying. All right. That is the 7th question. There. We proceed to number 8 question. All right. This level includes those objectives that deal with recall, recognize, fast, terminology, and others. Is it remembering or understanding? Wow, 90% answered remembering and 10% answered understanding. This is remembering. The answer is remembering. For the leaderboard, top list. All right. Next question. The choices. Is it true or is it false? Your answer will again be true or false. All right, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. 89% of you answered true, and the remaining percent answered false. Congratulations. There you go. 89% answered true. And for the top list, all right. For the last question, table of specification is to support the validity of the exam questionnaire. Is it true or is it false? True or false? Wow, 100% answered true. That was easy. 0%, none of you answered false. The answer, of course, is true. Congratulations. Thank you so much for participating in our quiz for today. Wow. Congratulations, quiz competition winners, top 10. Okay. So we will be giving the certificates. So take note. All right. Thank you so much. We will post them to the official page and group within 15 minutes. Note that there is no relation between quiz competition certificates and international webinar certificate quiz certificates for top 10 quiz competition winners, international webinar certificates for all active participants. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed the quiz for tonight. Congratulations once again, top 10, today's quiz competition. All right. We have all of your names, which you entered during joining the quiz competition. We will pick and prepare certificates and will post them on our official page and group within 15 minutes. All right. So note that there is no relation between quiz competition certificate and international webinar certificates, quiz certificates for top 10 quiz competition winners. Okay, so answering them. In a short while, Sir Jimbo Antipolo will be answering your questions. All right? So, participants, you are required and or requested, I should say, to ask your questions in our comment box. Okay? You can address, please, our speaker's name, Sir Jimbo Antipolo. All right? We will share the certification process later on after the show. So, anybody, do you have any question for our speaker tonight? All right. So, we will be waiting, Sir Jimbo, for whatever question that they will be asking. I know you're excited to answer them all. Get ready. Okay. So, so we will be sharing a certificate after the Q&A certification process. You will receive class material tomorrow on our website in this program description. So anybody who is going to ask Sir Jimbo tonight, do you have any question about the power of TOS? Okay. Ayun. Sir Jimbo. Sir Jimbo, you have a question here. Sir Jimbo, is there an exception to the rule in making TOS? Again, Sir Jimbo, is there from Jeril Kibin? Uh, Question is, Sir Jimbo, is there an exception to the rule in making TOS? Sir Jimbo.
Okay, thank you for that question, or Sir Jerel. Is there an exemption to the rule in making TOS? Basically, when we talk about TOS, it should never be forgotten to make a TOS. So talking about the exception to the rule, no no teacher is exempted in making the TOS. If you are a teacher, if you plan to conduct a test, then you should make a TOS. Now, on the rules of making TOS, those rules should be followed. You can never ignore those rules. If rule number one says that you have to identify first the learning objectives, then you have to do it first. If the next rule is to identify the number of hours that this learning objective is being taught, then you have to follow this one. Because if you ignore at least one rule, if you take one exception of the rule, then there is that would lead to the failure of making a good TOS. Again, we're talking about good TOS. We're not just making plainly TOS because everybody can make TOS. But the question is it really good? Are we following the rules? Okay? Now, if you want to make a good TOS, then you have to observe the rules.
Okay. So thank you so much. I hope, Sir Jeriel, the question is answered. Thank you, Sir Jimbo. Another question from Mom Evelyn Waperi. You see, Mom Evelyn Waperi is one of the earliest bird who entered in our platform a while back. Okay, so she is so excited and very supportive with this lesson that you are discussing now, Sir Jimbo. Okay, the question of Mom Evelyn goes like this. Good evening, sir. Is it necessary for a test item be reliable and valid? Thank you. Again, may I repeat the question, sir, from Evelyn, Mom Evelyn Waperi? She said, good evening, sir. Is it necessary for a test item be reliable and valid? Thank you so much. Sir Jimbo?
Of course. So that's my answer. Of course, it's really necessary that your test item is reliable and valid. Just like if you are a researcher, if you are having the survey questionnaire, you are not allowed to hand out the survey questionnaire to your corresponding respondents without establishing the validity and reliability of your survey questionnaire. That same goes with our exam questions. That same goes with the test items that we are constructing. That's why in the test development process, we have to follow the process. Part of the process is the pilot is the making of the TOS. Now, as I have mentioned a while ago, that in making the TOS, in a way, we are establishing validity of our test items. Now, if you fail to make a TOS, then meaning to say, you also fail in a manner to establish validity. Now, to further, give weight to your validity and reliability, that comes the pilot testing. Before we administer the our test exam, the pilot testing should be conducted first so that we can test the validity further, we can test the reliability of our questionnaire that we are giving. So that's it. Yes po ma'am, it's really necessary that your test item is valid and reliable.
Wow. Okay, ma'am, I hope that your question is already answered. Sir said it is appropriate and it should be reliable. All right, another question, sir, from Ma'am Kalesa Lasso. Okay, I hope that I'm reading your name properly, ma'am. Okay, the question says, good evening, sir. Now that we are having online classes, we only have limited time for each topic. How are we going to make TOS with the limited time given to every topic po? Okay, thank you po. Po is a respect word from the Filipino people. Okay, so for the information of the world, we use po in respect. Okay, in the language of the Filipino people. Again, sir, may I repeat the question from Ma'am Kalesa? She said, "Good evening, sir. Now that we are having online classes, we only have limited time for each topic. How are we going to make TOS with the limited time given to every topic po? Thank you, sir." Oh, Sir Jimbo, your
Okay,
time.
thank you ma'am Kalisa. Same experience
Okay.
with me. We are using here, we're not yet in the face-to-face mode of teaching. We are still employing the online class or the distance education. There's no worry at all as to the limited time of each topic because for example, a TOS is constructed after a quarter. So that would take you 3 months. Diba? After 3 months, you have your quarter exam. Then you have to prepare a TOS. If you can still recall in the elements of the TOS, in the parts of the TOS, there you can see in there the part wherein you have to input the number of hours. So you just have to sum up all of the hours that were consumed that you consume in discussing these topics. So you cannot do not tell me that you just have to write there 1 hour because that we are covering 3 months in a quarter. So perhaps you have to the 20 hours that I wrote there. It's just the standard, no. But due to limited hours during this online class, perhaps you can have 10 hours, you can have 15 hours. It's not a worry at all in making TOS as long as you input in the correct hours that you have discussed these particular topics. Then continue with the calculation of the number of items, and that's it. It's the same process actually. So that do not worry with the time. Just compute the total amount of time, then compute for the items. It's just that one.
Wow. Okay, so thank you so much. I hope that the question is again answered very well by our speaker, Sir Jimbo J. Antipolo. Okay, thank you so much for sharing, sir, and for answering the questions that were thrown to you. Um, I also hope that it was clear now. It's clear now for those who ask question. Truly, TOS plays an important role in the life of educators. All right, so it's not supposed to be taken for granted. Thank you so much, Sir Jimbo, once again. Sir Jimbo J.
Yeah,
Antipolo. Let's
ma'am.
give him a round of applause sa
I
bahay
think Sir
natin.
Joshua has another question, Ma'am Maria.
Okay, so are there any more questions posted? I think no more, sir.
Uh,
Okay.
there's
Ah,
a question
okay.
given by Sir Joshua
Okay.
Diego.
Sir Joshua Diego. Okay, so it's not flash on the screen, but however, I will just okay there. Sir Joshua Diego. All right. A question as referred to the letter quiz. It is not the TOS. What is really developed before the test is disseminated. All of us were wrong. I am just got confused. Again, according to Joshua Jago, as referred to the letter quiz, it is if it is not the TOS, what is really developed before the test is disseminated. All of us were wrong. Wrong. I am just got confused or I am confused. What he meant was, um, okay, so what is really developed is before the test is supposed to be TOS. So he want to clarify if it is really true that the TOS should come first, not the exam, sir.
I think I see where Sir Joshua is coming from. There is a confusion because if I can still recall it correctly, the statement goes like this: that the is it the options were true or false. The statement was the table of specification uh, comes first before the test is being disseminated. Technically, the answer is true. Okay, but to the as because if you have to recall the process, the first stage is to plan the test. Then after planning, you have to develop your TOS. After you develop the TOS, you have to start writing the items. It's not disseminating yet. It's still writing. After writing, you have to review. Now after you review, you have to conduct pilot testing. Now, after you conduct pilot testing, you now have to disseminate the items. So technically, it's still true because TOS comes. I'm not because the question, the statement is not really specific that what really comes before the dissemination, but the idea is the TOS should be constructed before the dissemination of the questions of the exam or the test questionnaire. So there are three, stages
Stages.
that are not but technically it's still true. So
Okay.
I hope that your confusion is cleared, Sir Joshua. We're not really after of the previous stage of the dissemination, but we're talking about in general of the statement because that's how it is being constructed. That the technically TOS comes before everything, okay? Before the writing of the items, before the pilot testing, before whatever. So it comes before.
Wow. Thank you so much again for answering that question. So it is clear now, once again, for those who are confused, you have to prepare your TOS first, table of specification, before going on the creation of your test questionnaires. Thank you so much once again to our speaker, Sir Jimbo. And I hope that all of you have enjoyed his lesson this evening. Thank you also so much for your participation, dear participants. I know you enjoyed well. We had 2 hours, full 2 hours for the discussion, and I hope you enjoyed too, just like I have enjoyed also. Thank you, Sir Jimbo. Mabuhay ka po. Sir Jimbo
Thank
Agoncillo.
you.
Okay.
Maria.
Thank you so much, sir. Ay, Antipolo, I should say. Once again, thank you, Sir Jimbo Antipolo. All right. Thank you for participating. And tonight, we will be giving you two certificates from the certificate last March 7. Okay, so today's certification process could be found under www.eduigp.com. From March 7, okay, you will be having your certificate. You have to take note, all right, for the code IGP 4976 from last March 7. Okay, with the code you can claim with the code you can claim your certificates anytime. Without it, you cannot have it. All right. So from March 7, the code is just like what I said a while ago. The second one for today's certification, March 26. Do not forget, please take note of today's code. Today's code, March 26, is IGP 4987. Today's certification process under www.eduigp.com. Code is IGP 4987 for March 26 today. All right, so you will have to claim two certificates today, March 7 and March 26. Thank you so much. All right, I hope that you may be able to claim your certificates so that is your reward for sitting down and listening to all the discussions with the speaker for tonight and last time also. Right, thank you for participating. We have so many participants tonight, and I know that you have at least somehow learned from the power of table of specification. um, I would like to reiterate that in coming up with examination, you have to plan and create your TOS first before creating your test questions. Thank you so much. All right, IGP family, thank you so much for making me the host tonight. And once again, I would like to say that I'm proud to be a member of the IGP for Global Professionals. And my name is Maria Cristina Asbucan. I am a teacher also, senior high school teacher, and I am from the Philippines. With this, I would like to wish you all good night. Thank you so much for sitting with us, viewing with us, discussing with us, and with all those things in mind, I would like to sign out now. Mabuhay po tayong lahat. Goodbye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.